You get to be the victims of my first attempt of presenting a class online. So we're going to talk about Chapter 10. Chapter 10 is about organizing your speech. Put it in a way we can understand it. Tell us your story. You know, we're a people of stories. Before there was a written word, stuff was passed down through telling stories, and we still do it. There's a few different ways you can put your story in certain patterns. One of them is chronological. The chronological order is time. You know, if I was telling about the history of Columbus State University, I could start in 1968 when it started as Columbus College and go forward, or I could start today and I could go backward. But it's in a time sequence. Topical. You know, the sample class that I have, or the sample outline I have online, squirrel fishing, is a great example of a topical presentation. It can be done through either, you know, I listed history, equipment, and rules. I could very well do equipment, rules, and history, or I could do rules, equipment, and history. It's separated by the three different topics that we have. Next, we have spatial. Spatial is something that it's in reference to space. Where is this to that? If you were downtown and giving somebody directions to Country's Barbecue, you could give them, tell the story in a spatial manner. You walk out the front of the building and you turn left, and you go down Broadway, and you turn right on Broadway, and you go down, and the next intersection is going to be 10th. And you continue down past 10th to 11th, past 11th to 12th, past 12th to 13th, and then you get to Country's Barbecue. And finally, it's problem, cause, solution. Problem, cause, solution is a very simple way to explain something to somebody. You know, a lot of times you hear people talk about a problem and a cause, but they don't tell about the solution. Or they like to complain about the problem. But problem, cause, solution, you say, this is the problem. The problem is we have too many feral animals in Columbus. The cause of that problem is too many people have had their pets, let them run around and not had them spayed or neutered. And they have animals and they can't get rid of the animals and they don't want to kill the animals, so they let them go. But what we can do is we could tax all pet owners with a pet tax and use that money to go to a humane shelter that could be created to have a live shelter where the animals aren't put down after so many days just because somebody didn't care about them. Now, this old guy named Monroe, he had something called the Monroe's Motivated Sequence. He said, to persuade somebody, it's pretty simple. You have to do these certain things. First of all, you have to get their attention. We've talked about that in other classes before. You have to have an attention getter. You know, what are you going to do to get my attention if I'm going to listen to you? So grabbing people's attention, going back to the animal thing, for example, is, you know, have you ever been bitten by a feral animal? Or have you ever had a feral animal tear up something of yours? Or have you ever had an experience with a feral animal where you were frightened that it was going to attack you or bite you or one of your children or your siblings? Next, we come to a need. So once you have their attention, you have to show the public or your audience that there's a need to do this. And the need in this particular case, maybe we have too many animals running around. We need to stop the disease that spread, you know, because they have fleas and ticks, all this other stuff on them because nobody takes them to the vet. So we have a need to get rid of these animals so people feel safe to walk out. They're not worried about walking their little dog and having a wild dog attack them. They're not worried about the flea infestation because the cats have decided to make a home in the attic of the dorms. Then you have to get them to tell them a way you can satisfy that need. Well, we can satisfy that need by having a tax which is targeted to pet owners, because, you know, if you don't have any pets, then why is it your problem? And just a special tax that would take care of that. We take that money to taking care of these animals. We could capture them. We could you know, home them in a live shelter instead of a kill shelter. We could capture them and neuter them, maybe, and give them inoculations. You know, because what could even be worse is a rabid animal. So we have got their attention. We showed them there's a need. We showed them a way to satisfy that need. Now we have to visualize it. Get them to visualize being able to go walk down the river walk without having dogs chase them, or the old railroad, the trail that goes back across town. Find a way to show them that we'll reduce the number of visits to the pediatrician because of allergies, because of feral animals living under their house. And then a call to action. I need you all to call your city council members and tell them we need to do this. We need to create something to get rid of these animals, and this is what we need to do. So, now that we know what Monroe's motivating sequence is, let's talk a little bit about your speech, a little bit more. You have to have an introduction in your speech, you all know that. You have to have an attention getter, we already discussed that. An attention getter could be many different things. It could be a rhetorical question. A question that you don't necessarily want them to answer, but you want them to think about. You're not looking for feedback from the audience, you're looking for get them thinking in a certain way. It could be a direct question. You could ask them all specifically, how many of you have children? How many of you have younger siblings? You could tell a story. Earlier I told you that we're a storytelling society, so it seems to work well. I like to include stories in there, and I'm probably bored most of you with many of them, but you could tell a story to get their attention. You could talk about a personal experience, either yours or somebody else's that happened. For example, with this COVID-19, you know, I could talk to you about this COVID. It's a bad thing, and all these other good things about it. But if I told you today that my sister, who works at St. Francis Hospital, was exposed to COVID-19, it would be part of it. It would get your attention. You know, I mean, do you know anybody else that's been exposed? Luckily, she's showing no signs, and we don't think she's going to get it. But that's true. She has been exposed to it. You could start with a quotation. You know, one of the most famous ones by Kennedy is, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's very appropriate at this point in time in our history. You could also quote Martin Luther King, I have a dream. That's quotes that most people have heard before, most people know. And it's something that yeah, I've heard that before. You can also have a quote that I'd never heard of before, but you want to express something in somebody else's words that can say it far better than you ever could. You can also start with humor. Now, humor, yeah, I don't care for that too much. I use a lot of humor, but my humor is self-deprecating. My humor is, this is what's funny about me. I had a student that was a dual enrollee in high school and college, and I guess it's evident by his inexperience and age, but when he stood up in front of the class, the first thing he said was, well, you know how women are. That's not necessarily a good thing to say. You're going to lose most of your audience, and I think I've told you all that before. So if you're going to use humor, make sure that you don't alienate somebody else by trying to be funny. Introduce your thesis. What is your speech about? Short little sentence, I have a dream. Short little sentence, ain't I a woman? Something that is going to tell what you're going to talk about. If we go back to squirrel fishing, I could start it out with a question, how many of you like sports? And get a raise of hands from the people who like sports. I'm going to tell you about a sport I bet you probably never heard of. It's called squirrel fishing. Short little introduction to your thesis. Demonstrate the importance of your topic and the credibility. You know, if you're talking about something like the disease spread by animals, you know, talk about that. You know, tell why it's important. The plague, most of you have probably heard of the plague, the Black Plague. In London, they were killing the feral animals. Well, the problem was it wasn't the rats that were the problem. The problem was the fleas that were on the rats. And so when it killed the rat, the fleas jumped off the rat and found the next warm body and helped spread the plague. So talk about the importance of your topic and the credibility. Preview your main points. As in any introduction, you have to tell us what you're going to talk about. I've told you more than once. A speech consists of you telling us 3 times. In the introduction, you tell us what you're going to talk about. In the body, you talk about it. And in the conclusion, you tell us what you said. So from the body, or from the preview of the main points, you move to the body. What are your main points? Something some of you have done is try to have 14 main points. Remember, your speech is 7 to 10 minutes. So you can't have a whole lot of main points. If you want us to understand the topic, you've got to narrow those points to 3 bullet comments at the most of what you want us to know. Your conclusion. The conclusion, you're going to sum up what you said, but don't tell us what you said. Well, today I talked about squirrel fishing, the rules, the equipment, and the history. That's a list. Don't give me a list. Tell me about it in a different way. And in conclusion, today we talked about squirrel fishing, a topic, a sport that most of you have not heard of at all. We talked about how convoluted the history of squirrel fishing is. We really don't know where it comes from. We talked about how simple the equipment is, that most of you have it laying around either in your place or mom and dad's place or maybe grandma and grandpa's place. You just need a string, really. And you need a timer of some sort. Well, most phones have timers on them. And then finally, the rules. The rules are something that can be made up as you go along. You can do total time, you can do the most time, you can do as many, however you want to count it up. So tell us what you said, but tell us in a different way. Make sure that you use your transitions between these things. First, we're going to talk about. Second, I'm going to talk about. Next, I'm going to discuss. Finally, whatever. And in conclusion, to sum it up, what I talked about was, they allow us to follow you through the speech. You can also have an internal summary in each section. So if we were talking about the history of squirrel fishing, when I got to the end of it, could have been Clemson, it could have been Stanford, it could have been this, it could have been that. I can sum it up by saying, as we've just noticed, it's convoluted. We really don't know where it came from. You could finish up the part about equipment. Anybody could have something anywhere. And my apologies, my daughter's calling me. I didn't have my phone muted, but I'll take care of that in just a minute. And understand that the signposts and transitions hold the subpoints it all together. It makes it something we can understand and we can follow. So this concludes my first presentation via video. I hope you like my basement cubby hole. This is my office. It's not a lot, but it's something I can work with. Give me some feedback on this, because this is the first time I've done it. And if you can tell me how to do it better, tell me how to do it better. The first one of you is going to tell me I know. Mute the phone before I start. But I want to provide something more than, here, read this. So I pretty much gave you a synopsis of what I would have given in class. I hope it covered the stuff you need to cover. I realize this is a trying time for every one of you, something that most of us have never done. And I've taught online before, but I've never taught with videos. So if it works, let me know. If it doesn't work, let me know. If I can improve it, maybe I need to put my suit on. What do you think? Who knows? Y'all tell me. Any questions you have my email. Feel free to contact me. Hopefully, in the near future, or the not-so-distant future, we will get to see each other again. But until then, we're going to be trying new things. Thanks. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let me know. Bye.